Hey, it's Rafael Cintron here. I help people lower their taxes like I lowered mine from 40-something% to 0%, get a second citizenship, live abroad, travel the world, and today we're gonna talk about the top languages you need to learn, or you should at least know some words and phrases so that they ease your business around the world. If you're traveling, or if you're moving abroad, if you're just being a nomad, or if you actually want to do business in other countries, buy property, what are the absolute best languages you should learn, why you should learn them, and some tips that I've used to learn some of these languages. The first language, which is the one I'm talking right now, and it's a pretty obvious one, is English. Even though it might be obvious, a lot of people, their English is not that good, or they think they still speak broken English. So if you're watching this and your English is just not that great, people understand you but not that much, definitely focus on that one. I've seen around the world, wherever I go, apart from a few exceptions, pretty much everybody speaks even a little or some or really good English. Obviously, if you're going to the United States, Canada, Australia, the UK, most of Western Europe, people will speak to you in English if you don't speak the native language or the local language. So definitely learning English perfectly is a great option. English is actually my second language. My first language is another one that I'm going to talk about later. And I learned English basically through school, but also just immersing myself in English. So for you, English is a first language, you can skip to the second language here. But if it's not, I would recommend you to just live in English. Write in English, listen to videos and books in English, read things in English, everything in English. And when you're talking to people, for example, I have a colleague in Serbia. He wants to learn better English, even though his English is pretty good. With the exercise that he does, him and his wife, they both want to learn English. They're both Serbian, and they talk English to each other on a daily basis. So it was kind of funny when I met them in Serbia. We were just going to a road trip, and they were actually talking in English together. Him and his wife, they were always talking in English just to perfect their English. So that's a great tactic. Immerse yourself in English. Tell your family members, your friends, hey, I want to improve my English. I want to just learn English and use English on a day-by-day basis. The second language, which is actually my first language, is Spanish. Obviously, Spanish is spoken by over 20 countries around the world, in Latin America, Spain, but there's also a lot of Spanish all over the world. I remember a few weeks ago, I was in Switzerland, and everywhere I would go, there was somebody from Mexico, from Colombia, from Dominican Republic, and I really spoke a lot of Spanish. And my wife was kind of making jokes about it, that we went to Switzerland and all we spoke was Spanish, because it is such a widely spoken language, and so many immigrants coming from Latin America, from Spain to other parts of the world. And obviously, if you want to do business in Latin America, most people like doing business in Spanish, especially if you're looking, for example, to buy a property. The prices that you'll see in these English websites, or when you go to a realtor and they're all in English, they're always going to be much more expensive than the Spanish results. If you look at the Spanish results and the Spanish websites, they'll be 30%, 50% cheaper prices than when you see the English ones. So definitely, it's a language that is also spoken by a lot of people in English-speaking countries, like in the south of the USA. A lot of people speak Spanish. So if you want to learn a language that gives you access to a lot of the world, gives you access to people that are immigrating, maybe you want to do business in those countries and you want to lower the prices and you want to have a better ease of business, then Spanish is definitely one to learn. If I were to give you a tip, obviously it's my native language, but I've helped a lot of people sort of improve their Spanish when I was younger, because I used to travel to Germany and travel to all over the place, and people would tell me, oh, help me in Spanish, I'm trying to learn Spanish. It's the same deal. I was talking to a woman about a few years ago, not really recently, but she learned Spanish by immersing herself. Even though she was not in Spain, she wasn't in Latin America, she was watching telenovelas, these soap operas in Spanish, basically, that come from Mexico and other parts of Latin America. And she was just watching those Spanish shows every day, and every time she didn't understand a word or a phrase or something, she would write it down and learn every single time, and every day she would learn more words. So again, immerse yourself into the language. If you can move into a country that speaks Spanish, obviously a much better option. The third language up is Russian. Russian is widely spoken, obviously, by all the people in Russia and neighboring countries, Ukraine, Georgia, all of these, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, if you want to do business in any of them, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, all of these people speak pretty good or perfect Russian. So obviously if you want to do business in any of those countries, Russian is the language to learn, and Russian is also widely spoken by countries that you wouldn't think speak Russian. If you go to Egypt, if you go to Turkey, a lot of people, specifically in the beach areas, or in the capital, I wouldn't say that much, but in the very popular cities, apart from the capitals, they speak Russian because they're used to so many Russian tourists. If you want to go down in the south of Europe to Montenegro, or maybe even, let's say, Serbia, and countries like Croatia, you will find a lot of people that speak Russian. It's not the native language, it's not the local language, but there's a lot of Russian population there and a lot of people that speak Russian. As well as countries like, I'm right now in Belgium, for example, I hear Russian on the streets all the time. The guy that helped me, for example, find a food delivery service was Russian. His name was Alexievich. And there's a lot of people, a lot of immigrants, a lot of influence from Russian countries and Russian language speakers. And obviously, if you want to do business in any of these countries, I, for example, spend a lot of time in Ukraine because my wife is Ukrainian, and the same deal as I talked about in Spanish. If you want to look for a property, if you want to look for a business deal, it's always going to be so much cheaper in the Russian language websites. In the English language websites, they're going to try to really price it up because they know that you're used to those prices. You come from the West, you're used to 3 times the normal price, but when you look at the Russian prices, they're always going to be cheaper and always going to be much, much easier to deal with. Russian is a language that I'm currently learning. It is not easy to learn, specifically because of the Cyrillic alphabet. It is just harder to read, understand, comprehend the language because of that alphabet and those words, and you sometimes don't understand what letter that is and how to pronounce it. But it is a language that in the next 5 years, let's say, I want to learn fluently and I want to really speak so I can do business in these countries. The next language up would be French. French is a language that I tried to learn. I speak a little bit of French. I would not say I am fluent at it, but the amount of people that speak French all over the world is massive. There's so many countries, for example, obviously here in Europe, you have Belgium, you have France, you have Switzerland, you have so many countries that speak French as a native language, as well as a lot of people that speak French all over the world. If you go to some parts of Asia, obviously Africa, there's a lot of French speakers if you want to go and do business in Africa. So there's many, many countries around the world that French is their native language, as well as a lot of countries or a lot of places where a lot of French speakers, and French is widely spoken. So if you're looking for a language that is not, let's say, one of those big business languages, but if you learn French, for example, if you're going to a country that has French as one of their languages, or just a wide population of people speak French, then you can really have an advantage over everybody else, especially if you speak it fluently. Speaking fluent French and okay French is very different because of the pronunciations. Here in Belgium, for example, sometimes I listen to French and I understand it. Sometimes I listen to it and I'm like, what did he just say? Because of the pronunciation, because of the way they fix up together the words and the phrases. So definitely French, if you're looking for a language that is also very romantic, very nice to listen to it, very nice to learn it as well. It is a hard to learn language. I would say if you're deciding between Spanish and French, definitely Spanish would be first and then French. So the transition from, let's say, your English to your Spanish to your French is smooth. If you learn French right after English, that might be a tough barrier to cross through. So I definitely recommend this particular language. Millions of people around the world speak it, and definitely a good language to learn for business and for traveling in general. And the last language to learn for business and travel, even though I haven't tried to learn it, is Chinese. Chinese, for obvious reasons, is spoken by over 1 billion people, and it is a very popular and native language in China, Hong Kong, Macau, Tibet, Singapore as well, which is a giant center of business, Taiwan, obviously, and it is widely spoken in Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, and in many countries around the world. If you go to anywhere in Europe, you're likely to find Chinese speakers. If you go to the United States, obviously you're likely to find Chinese speakers. Over in Canada, in Toronto, I spent a lot of time in Toronto, I found a lot of people that spoke Chinese, came directly from China, their descendants came from China, and they all speak Chinese. So Chinese is one of those languages that is just massive, just tons of people speak it. It's obviously not easy to learn it. The pronunciations, the words, everything is just different from the Western languages, but it's a language that I definitely have my eyes on in the next, let's say 10, 20 years that I want to learn long term, super long term. And obviously if you want to do business in Singapore, in China, maybe in Thailand, you don't want to learn Thai, then Chinese is a good language to learn to complement the rest of the languages you have. So definitely a language with massive volume, a lot of countries speak it, and a lot of influence from Chinese immigrants and Chinese people all over the world. That is it for this video on the top 5 languages to learn. If you want my help moving abroad, getting a second citizenship, lowering your taxes, traveling around the world, click that first link in the description. I'm happy to talk to you and see if my services work for you, if I can help you with my experience lowering my taxes, moving abroad, traveling to over 50 countries. Click that first link. I'll talk to you on that call. Subscribe, hit that notification bell and that like button down below, and watch the other videos here on the channel. I look forward to seeing you on the next one.